Okay, so this seems to be the best spot that I've found so far in my house, simply because it is the easiest lighting wise. I don't have to add any lighting to it. There's great natural light in here, and I think the colors are pretty. And I always have fresh flowers in my living room, something I kind of started doing relatively recently. I always like doing it occasionally, but I've been finding like this bunch of roses was like $6. And they bring me so much happiness to have in my house. So why not treat myself to $6 of happiness that usually lasts 1 to 2 weeks? I think it's a good investment. Anyway, okay, shh, you gotta be quiet. Yeah, you wanna lay down? You can lay down by me. No. I know, Blue would like to be in this video as well, I think. I think all the stories I'm sharing on here are personal and will be personal, but it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I didn't even think about that when I planned to make this video today, but it just so happens that it coincides with the right month. This is my own personal breast cancer story, and I hesitate to even say the word breast cancer. First of all, if you've ever been diagnosed with it, you know it's a hard thing to actually say out loud. Stick around to the end though, because I'm going to share something really fun with you that I did this past weekend to kind of celebrate this whole journey of mine. Last year, at the end of last year, I was diagnosed with DCIS, which is short for ductal carcinoma in situ. And so this is essentially considered a stage 0 non-invasive type of cancer, breast cancer. And from my research, some doctors even are considering not calling it cancer. Do we call this cancer? Because it's something that's caught so early, but it is still just widely recognized as cancer and treated as such. One of the reasons I want to share this on here is because when I was diagnosed with it and was trying to decide what to do, and then when I decided what to do, which you'll find out soon, I went to YouTube to listen to other women's stories and to hear what they experienced and what they did. And it just helps you to kind of feel less alone, I think, and to maybe learn some information, although I always recommend you fact check, right, when you're not like really learning about something from your doctor or a medical source. I think I've heard people like rely on ChatGPT or AI for explaining these things to them. And, those kind of sources can get things wrong. And I will say also, as I was a nurse before I started doing career coaching, and part of that time I was a chemotherapy nurse. I was also a radiation nurse. So I have, a little bit of understanding and background, but by no means am I going to tell you not to fact check me. Also, I will add that when I was diagnosed with this last year, it was July, August, 3 months after we buried my dad, who had died from pancreatic cancer. So, this was like just kind of unfathomable, right? You think like, what? Why is this happening now? And why is it happening at all? So, okay, I had to go back through my timeline and see all of the tests, procedures, everything that I've been through in this past year because of this diagnosis. And I literally pulled up my medical record, my chart online, and had to write down everything because there was so much that like I knew about it all, but kind of like you forget the order in which things happen or whatever. So here is my story. I will try to be as brief as possible. Last September, so September 2024, I went for my annual mammogram. I have been going for my annual mammogram for many years, and always knew the importance of it. So if you've ever been, you go for your mammogram, and a lot of times they'll do like an additional ultrasound, especially if you've been told you have dense breast tissue, which I always have been told that. And so it's not uncommon for them to say, we want to do an ultrasound just to check a little bit further to make sure there's nothing there. And so when they do that, of course, at first you're like, makes you a little like nervous, but like if you've done it before and it's just like routine, you just think, okay, whatever, this is what always happens or happens a lot of times. So they bring me to the ultrasound room to go do that. And it's taking longer than usual. Like the ultrasound tech is really looking, calls another doctor in. They're looking, okay, we have to go look at some things. Then they come back. It just went on longer than normal. So you know that something's up. Like they're seeing something that they don't like. So at the end of that, they were like, okay, there's 2 spots in your right breast. Left looked all fine. There's 2 spots in your right breast that we really need to do a biopsy on. And then the breast surgeon had come in and done and looked at stuff. So there were 2 spots, and they didn't think that the normal like ultrasound biopsy would be, they didn't think they'd be able to get to both of the spots the same way. So I knew going in so at that point we schedule the ultrasound guided biopsy, which is just done right in that same space. And I just want to add that all these people taking care of me were absolutely wonderful. So we schedule the ultrasound biopsy. I go in. I'm not going to go through dates because that just doesn't matter. This is just the order in which things happen. I go in pretty soon for the ultrasound biopsy, and then we have to wait for the results of that. So they knew after the biopsy that they were going to have to like go back in because they couldn't get to the other area. I can't explain that all. It's fuzzy in my brain, but I knew I was going to need to. So the ultrasound biopsy was done. Then I went back maybe 1 or 2 weeks later for what's called a stereotactic needle biopsy of the right breast. And so basically in this, you're like laying down on a table on your stomach, so your breast drops through this like space. It's basically like another mammogram x-ray type of machine. And they were able to get to the other spot this way. This one was a little more uncomfortable, but they numbed everything and took longer. Just the position of laying on your stomach can be a little uncomfortable, but wasn't anything terrible. And they placed a clip in the breast, which the clip can help them identify where the spot is later on when they're doing more testing procedures, that kind of thing. So they placed a clip. After all that, we get the pathology test back, and it's like, yeah, there's some like atypia of your cells, which means they're just abnormal. We need to look further, so we're going to schedule you for an excisional biopsy, which then needs to be done in an OR under general anesthesia. I haven't had a lot of surgeries. In fact, I had like a C-section. I had another procedure done that was general anesthesia. Obviously, the C-section was not general anesthesia. It was just epidural. So really, one kind of procedure in my whole life where I needed general anesthesia. So this was new to me, that I'd be going in for like surgery. But it's not a long one, and recovery's pretty easy. So in November, so the original mammogram was in September. November, I go in for early November for this excisional biopsy. They do that, they get what they need. I go back early December for another excisional biopsy in the OR, general anesthesia. And also this time, insurance is also covering it, calling it a partial mastectomy, which I was like, huh? It comes back, okay, yes, it is DCIS, but we didn't get clean margins. They want to make sure they get the whole site of the cancer or the tumor or whatever it is you have. Ductal carcinoma in situ is a little different because it's not like I didn't have any issues. I didn't feel a lump. There was no pain, nothing. And so it doesn't form like a mass. We're not going to do science class here, but just know that. So they want to try to get clean margins, meaning they know that they feel confident they've gotten all of it, and then you can proceed with whatever treatment is recommended after that. So they didn't feel like they had clean margins. So we had to go, they were like, we need to go back in a third time. At this point, I'm like, okay, this is a lot. Like, why, and then how do I know we're not going to have to go back in a fourth time? At that point, I was like, hold up. I know, like, what are my options here moving forward? And it was like, well, We do a third biopsy. Hopefully we get the rest of it. Then probably will have some radiation, and then there would probably be a drug that I'd have to be on for a number of years. And I personally didn't really want to go that route. The other alternative was don't do the third biopsy, and you can do a mastectomy and reconstruction. And that to me, and once again, this is all a personal choice. We all have to choose what feels right for us. For someone else, radiation and drug treatment, drug therapy might be the option that they want to take. I personally was like, let's do the mastectomy, double. I just was like, I'm done with it. I don't want to have to even worry about this anymore. So I was like, I decided at that point, let's do the double mastectomy with reconstruction. And so I did it. It's called DIEP flap, DIEP flap reconstruction. And you can look up what that means. But basically, it's where they take your abdominal fat and use that to reconstruct your breasts. And so there's a lot that has to go on there because they have to use your blood vessels in your abdomen and relocate them to your breasts so that your breasts have circulation and can be alive and so the tissue can thrive. Okay, so once I decided that, of course I did a plastic surgeon does that along with my breast surgeon. The breast surgeon performs the mastectomy. The plastic surgeon performs the DIEP flap reconstruction. So that decision was made. And this time I did an MRI, just something that they needed to get good imaging on. And then I also did a CT angiogram of the abdomen and pelvis so they could map out those blood vessels for the surgery. And then finally in February of this year, I had the double mastectomy with DIEP flap reconstruction. So it was all done in one big surgery. It lasted, I think it was about a 6 or 7 hour surgery. I stayed in the hospital 2 nights. Absolutely adore my plastic surgeon and his team. Everybody was phenomenal. If y'all want me to, if you put in the comments, if you want to hear more about the actual surgery and recovery, because there was a lot to that, I'm happy to make a separate video, but I don't think I really need to get into it here. It was a 6-week recovery, but really more like 10 to 12 weeks before I felt fully back to myself. But in that time, okay, so February, it was kind of towards the end of February, I had the surgery. A few weeks later, I had some necrotic tissue, which basically means it's black, it's not doing great. And it was starting to look a little funky. Now, being a nurse, it takes a lot to gross me out. And one day I was doing my wound care in the morning, and the right one was not looking pretty to me. And I was like, oh, they told me to come in. They looked at it, and he was like, we need to have surgery tomorrow morning to kind of clean all this up. So I don't think it was infected yet, or it was just starting to kind of in the beginning of infection. But so they took me in for what's called an IND. So back in the OR, general anesthesia. So they basically open things up, drain out any kind of pus, any fluid that's there, clean it up, stitch it back up. In that process, I lost my right nipple. Sorry if that's TMI, but it's part of it. Some people lose both nipples in the beginning from the get-go. I had nipple sparing surgery, so they were both there after the first one. Then I lost the right one. I forgot to add that into my timeline too. Crazy about the nipple. Then when you do the DIEP flap reconstruction, you also have a revision surgery later on. So the revision, I can't say the word, revision surgery was done in June. And I call that the make it pretty surgery. It's basically to clean up the incision lines, bring your scar line down on your abdomen, just make sure everything looks great. The first one is let's go in, make sure we get the mastectomy done. Everything's reconstructed. It looks good, but when they go back the second time, they make sure everything is just right. So that was done in June. That was outpatient. I didn't have to stay in the hospital. It was, I think, maybe a 3-hour-ish surgery. Um, Same thing for recovery for that, though. It's pretty much the same. You have, wound drains afterwards, or surgical drains. So that was another like 6 weeks recovery, and then just kind of getting around to, let's see, that was in June, July, August, September. So I'm a few months out. I'm feeling, there's no pain anywhere, although my abdomen a little bit. I think that's the last place to really like feel normal, but it's getting there. Oh, so then I had to get a new nipple. This is really personal. That was redone as an outpatient procedure in the office. It's crazy. They just locally numb it, form a new nipple out of your skin, and then I will go back once the skin's all really nice and healed, probably in another month or so, and they do like a airbrush. No, not an airbrush. They do like a tattoo areola, and then it's all done. That's a lot, right? But what I feel like I got really lucky. My diagnosis, it was caught early, stage 0. There are people that have way more complicated and complex stories than I do. But I think the importance of the story is that, first of all, prevention is key. Go to your annual mammograms. Like I said, this one was not done because I was having a problem. It was just my normal, regular annual mammogram, and this is what came from it. I'm very happy with the choices I made as far as my treatment, and I don't think either choice is an easier one, but you have to make what feels right for you in your life. My daughters were absolutely wonderful, helping me and taking care of me, helping me around the house when I was recovering, coming to my surgeries. Family that helped, prepare like meals ahead of time. I have, people I know, this business group I'm in on the internet, basically, people I've never met in person formed a meal train for me and donated, and that was amazing to experience that kind of just care and selflessness from other people that they just, that they just give to you like that so openly. Even my ex-husband and his wife helped prepare meals for me, which, I could talk about that another day. We have a very good relationship. So it felt great to feel like that kind of support from the people closest to you. And then from people that you've never met in person, like I said, just like on a Zoom call kind of thing. Okay. Which leads me to this past weekend. So when I was going through all of this, I was like, I need something like in the future to look forward to. One of the things that I love the most is traveling. And that is a great reward for me. My oldest daughter and I had always been trying to go to Disney for, just like a weekend, just like a fun, let's go do it all in a weekend and come back. And, we're not like big Disney people. Like we don't go every year. Last time I went was in 2018. Before that was 2012. So it was kind of like every 7-ish years we wind up there because it's just fun, right? So I was like, you know what? I think what I want to look forward to is like just feeling like there's like no care in the world, no worries, feel like a kid again. I want to go to Disney. And so we planned that. We planned it very, very quickly, like a month ago. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I've been wanting to do that as like my reward, I guess, for all that I went through in the last year, because it was a lot. And I'm still, like I still have the tattoo to do. And so I'm still following up with my plastic surgeon, but like really everything's healed. I'm feeling great. I'm getting back to everything, my normal routines. starting to be able to, I can work out like I used to, that kind of thing. So just building my strength back up. So we went to Disney World this past weekend. I'll put a picture in here that I think captures the exact description of what I wanted in my face, and you'll see it. I just look like I said, I just want to feel like a kid again. And I was completely in that moment in this picture. So I'll put that here next so you can see it. The moral of this story is get your annual mammogram done. It is important. It does help save lives. Your choices, the choice you make, if you have a diagnosis, is totally personal and up to you. Just be well informed. Get your information from reliable sources. Get a second opinion if you need it. And let the people around you support you and help you. And then plan something in the future if you wind up having a road like this, that is that like little gem at the end, the little reward that you can have your mind set on and then actually follow through with when you get to the point where you feel like, okay, I'm ready to celebrate. And that's what I did. Let me know in the comments if you have had any kind of similar journey or what your own journey is. Everybody has a different story, even with the same diagnosis. It's amazing once I like posted about it on Instagram, like how many people I knew had something like this happen recently, and went through their own, journey. And everybody has a little bit of a different story. So I think it's so important for us to share so that we feel less scared, less alone, because you're not. There's so many people that have had these kind of journeys. And so, like I said, put in the comments if you have any kind of story to tell, or if you'd like to hear more. Like I said, I could go into more details about my own, the actual, like kind of focus more on just the surgery and try to give as much information about that as I can. So I think that's all I have for you this time. I hope I didn't go too long. I don't know how long it's been since I started recording. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, I think that is it. I'll see you next time. Bye.